And I had a question for you. I'm working on some YouTube template, like YouTube thumbnail template. And I was kind of curious if I wanted to templatize the process, make it easier to recreate or have somebody else work on it, which program is better for that?
So any program, I always feel like any program where you're going to be dealing with a photograph and type, you should use InDesign. For something that's going to have multiple pages, InDesign. I use the example of a backpack. My backpack contains a whole bunch of pens, and it contains folders from client work, and then it contains my computer, right? The backpack holds all of it. So the backpack is what my analogy is InDesign, because everything goes into the backpack. The photos go in, the illustrations go in. So the pins are the illustrations, the camera is the photos or whatever, but they all live in the backpack because the InDesign is made to hold both photos, text, illustration without getting lagged down. So Photoshop is not made for text. You can do text, but it is very limiting. So then you have to add new things, or it's a new layer. Everything is a new layer. You can't add leading unless, you can, but it's not as easy. And so it is clunky when you're trying to add type. Well, when you're trying to do an illustration or a logo, you do that in Illustrator. Well, so because it's vector based. So it has to do with the format of the way the tool is built. Can you build a house with a hammer? Absolutely. I do not want to build a house with a hammer, because it's going to take a lot more time. There are these things called screwdrivers, right? And so why wouldn't we use the screwdriver, the tool for the appropriate job? And so that it's just for me, and that's why. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just, I have InDesign and I've used it a couple of times, but not enough to be really familiar with it, like how you just described. But I do know that if I do something, doing type and manipulating shape and all that, of course, like Illustrator, I go straight for that because I've explored it enough to know.
Because you've dated it.
Way easier.
You've dated it a lot. You've dated it a lot, but
I've dated it a lot. I've gotten to know it quite well.
You have. Was it your first one you got to know?
No, actually, I got to know Photoshop first, and one thing I do absolutely love about Photoshop is dropping an image in there and messing with it and overlays and all the.
But that's stuff. What it's made for, right?
Right. But then as soon as I wanted to start playing with type, it was like, just like you said, it was like, okay, it's capable.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how clunky it was until I started working in Illustrator. And so for you to say that InDesign can kind of handle both without getting bloated, which I often find Photoshop gets bloated pretty easily.
And Illustrator if Illustrator wasn't made to control or have images in, mm-hmm. right? So it's made for vector, making vectors. So whenever I have a student who says, oh, I did the whole thing in Illustrator and I'll just bring it into InDesign. I was like, well, that's just saying you're going to, I don't even know a good analogy for that. It's really infuriating to me because I'm like, but if you want to work like a professional, then you will do your illustrations in Illustrator. Then you can make them as big or small as you need them to be. And then you bring them into InDesign and I do a save as an EPS so that they are not being manipulated. So if I grab a point by accident and I move things out, it's not happening. So if I have a logo, I save it as an EPS and I bring it into InDesign because it can move a lot faster. I can move much quicker because a vector can't handle a photograph. A vector program without being slower.
Totally makes sense.
So I'm just telling you, usually people do not marry the first person they date. Okay. But they might have good thoughts about them, right? And they can go back and use them for things, or they learn things and they have fond memories, right? I'm not saying give Illustrator, kick it to the curb. It definitely has a place. And maybe that's where the dating analogy ends. But I feel like people just get stuck learning and sticking because it's confidence. It's like, but I know how to do it in Illustrator. But
well, there's that learning curve. That's what stops me is like, I will embrace the learning curve when I absolutely like, okay, yeah, that's what I have to do. But I know going in, it's going to be an uphill trudge. And what I used to just kind of, despite Illustrator slowing down, like, boop, 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 boop. Okay, yeah, it's, a little bogged down, but I'm done. And so heading into a new program again and kind of going like, okay, now where is everything?
But a lot of the
it's
same
like learning
tools,
to write with
it
the
is
opposite hand.
But once you embrace InDesign, you will realize that it is like, oh, there's lots of similar tools, but it moves so much quicker. It's kind of like a pedal car, a push pedal. You run like Fred Flintstone, and then you have one with an engine. And you're like, but it's both a car, And I'm like, yeah, but man, I can go a whole lot faster in my one with the engine. So I would be happy to create these little things because it still has layers, right? There's the beauty of layers in Illustrator, InDesign, or Photoshop. There's the beauty of multiply, which you have in Illustrator, InDesign, or Photoshop, right? Or the effects panel. So there's lots of things that combine, but I would just say if you're going to do an illustration or a logo or something that's going to be like that, then that is Illustrator. If you're going to do something with photo manipulation, you do that part in Photoshop and then you put it into the backpack and you take it where it needs to go. Because the backpack, can you imagine trying to hold all of my pins? This isn't even all of them, right? This is just one cup of them. But all of my pins and just, hold. I mean, have you ever tried to like hold your daughter and your son and cook dinner, right? It's just, you by accident cook the kid, right? So I just it would be easier if you had like one in a papoose and one in the backpack and then you have your hands free. And that's InDesign. Everything's in its place.
And that's helpful. Thank you. I might be calling you and going, Diane, I can't find the thing.
I'm happy to. That would be great. Okay. I can make little videos for that. If you enjoyed that, we'd love for you to hit like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. You can follow me at rechargingyou.com. And you can follow Rachel at therachelnichols.com. We'll see y'all next time.